Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the Step Up First Birthday Virtual Celebration event. I feel like I should have some bunting or some sort of special hat or something, or cake. I can't believe I forgot a birthday cake. But welcome and thank you for joining us for our virtual celebration. So yes, it is 1 year since the Step Up Network launched, and we're going to take you through tonight a event that we've curated with a mixture of looking back and seeing what we've achieved, but equally looking forward and what we're going to do. And we've got the wonderful Hannah Wilson, who has just arrived backstage as our wonderful keynote speaker. I will introduce the team who are going to be here shortly. This is the agenda for tonight. So we're going to give a general welcome introduction and rough sort of timings that we'll be going to. Like I said, we're going to be looking back first, so looking at what we've achieved and our impact, before then handing over to Hannah, who's our keynote speaker, looking at the power of intentional networking. And then we're going to be looking forward, so our upcoming plans, how you can get involved, including all of our events for next year, which will be going live during the course of this event. And then we're going to close off by sort of sharing the next steps with everyone. So just to give a bit of a general welcome, first of all, I'm going to start with who's here tonight. This is myself, Ben Hobbis, founder and chair, and you can find me on X at Mr. B Hobbis. Elaine, unfortunately, is nursing a migraine this evening, so won't be joining us, but she's here in spirit, and we hope she gets better soon. We've got Christine. Say hello, Christine. So Christine is our vice chair for content, and you can follow her on X as Teaching Year 6. Uta is joining us later, who's our vice chair of programs and partnerships. And then Brooke, can you give us a wave? Thanks, Brooke. Brooke, who is our vice chair of strategy and impact, and you can follow her at BW Management 24. And then, like I said, we've got the wonderful Hannah Wilson, who's our keynote speaker, who you can engage with on X and on LinkedIn at ethical_leader. So if you don't know who you are or who we are, and you're just scrolling on Twitter or LinkedIn and you've seen this event pop up, let's tell you a little bit about us. So we have a very strong why. So this is a why we share all of our events, and it's why we are here as an organisation. It's why a year ago we launched and why we were set up. And that's because we know that educational leadership can be very hard. It can be lonely. It can be scary. It can be underdeveloped and not diverse. And if you look at that first couple of lines, you could think that actually being a leader in education is quite a negative place to be. But actually it's not, and it shouldn't be. But we know that there are many people who don't have the opportunity to step up and make the step up they wish to make, or they step down or step out in some cases because of a lack of balance and a lack of opportunity. And we believe that it doesn't have to be this way, and that it shouldn't be this way at all. So how do we do this? So we've achieved this through many different ways. We have our 5 ways of working: connecting, which is all about our events; supporting, which is our directory and our programs and the coaching we're developing and the services we're developing; collaborating. So it's great to have Hannah here from Diverse Educators, and Hannah and Diverse Educators are just one organisation we have worked with, supported and amplified, and they've equally amplified us in many ways. Sharing, which is pretty much all of our other content beyond our events; and networking, which is sort of the behind the scenes of our organisation and is at the heart of everything we do. And that's why we knew that our keynote speaker tonight, the topic had to be around something to do with networking. And so our what? Who are we? We are a leadership network for new and aspiring leaders in education, and we focus on barriers, development, diversity, journeys, and wellbeing, and they're known as our 5 key themes. And we know that leadership is very diverse in terms of the number of different roles you can take on now. And actually, to be a leader in education, if we think everyone is a leader, the minute you step into that classroom as a trainee teacher and you're leading that group of children or that group of adults, you are a leader ultimately from day one of your teaching career. So we're going to start by looking back. Now I'm going to do Elaine's couple of slides and Christine is going to help me. So Brooke, I'm just going to take you off the screen for a bit so you can have a bit of a break, screen break. And we're going to look back at, first of all, what we've achieved and the impact we had. So yeah, this time 1 year ago, so exactly a year ago today, it was a Saturday morning, we launched Step Up. And initially we were supposed to launch in the January, and I'm so glad that we didn't in hindsight, and it was pushed back to June. We had so many amazing speakers, and you can see myself there, and Elaine was my co-host for the day, and Nikki and Christine, two of our volunteers. Nikki, who's actually doing the social media tonight, and Christine, who's on the screen, did the social media. And that was when we only had a team of about 8 volunteers. And now we've got a much larger team. But these people on the screen, those 14 speakers, really allowed us to really start off strong as a network with so many empowering, authentic, honest stories about leadership across a range of different topics. And those videos are on our YouTube channel, so I would recommend you definitely go back and watch and see some of the fantastic things that are being shared. What not a lot of people know is a week later, exactly a week later after that event, the founding volunteer team, or most of the founding volunteer team, met in person. We went to the Pen Museum in Birmingham. So yes, there is a museum all about pens in Birmingham. We were surprised at how many people visited it as we were sat in the meeting room planning out our first 3 years. And that is exactly what we did. We planned out our vision, we planned out our values, we connected as a team, we decided how we was going to work together as a team. And it was a really good day. And it was something that initially was planned as a one-off, just because we were just starting out as a network. We felt it was really important to have a really strong vision and strategy. And then it was something that I think it was Adam, one of our volunteers, who you can see in the picture there on the day, was like, oh, I think we should do this every year. And everyone was in sort of a general consensus that, yeah, we do need to do it every year. And it's the day I'm looking forward to the most, actually, is having all of our volunteers under one roof and some under a virtual roof later in June this year as well. And then that was it for 2022, 2023. And then we moved on to 2023 and 2024, which I'm now going to hand over to Christine, who's going to take you through what we've done this year.
Yeah, so like Ben said, it was we only started in June, so a year ago today. And at the start of the year, we surveyed lots of people in our network, just basically see what people wanted. And based on that, we designed each event to be different, and that was intentional. It was a different number of places, different locations, different setups. So there was lots and lots of different things that we were looking at. So, for example, our first face-to-face event was our Birmingham Lunch and Lead Meet, which was a bit of a smaller face-to-face event. That was in October, and then in November we had a Get That Leadership Job Online workshop, which was, I think, quite popular, Ben, from memory. January 2024, we had a virtual lead meet. We've had our London Leadership Day in February, which was in person. We've had an International Women's Day event in March. I think that was virtual. And then we've also had a Manchester Coffee and Lead Meet, which was our last face-to-face event in April. So although we've run those ones, we've also seemed to have gate crashed quite a few. So sometimes that's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional. Our WhatsApp group will be like, who's going to this? And we find out most of us are going. So some of the examples, so we've been to Teach First Great Ambassador Gathering, we've been to a Women Ed East Midlands Walk and Talk, Research Ed Southwest, Empathy Week, Heads Forward, Women Ed London, Staffordshire Research School, Black Men Teach Retreat, which I know Ben went to, which looked amazing, and lots more. So you will see a lot of us at other events too, led by other networks. So we've kind of touched on it a little bit with us gate crashing their events, but we've also been working a lot with lots of organisations. And obviously, as you can see, there are lots on the screen. And that's one of our key ways of working is collaboration. So it's been showcased through the fantastic work we've been able to achieve, and also the ability to act as a signpost for our community. And I know Ben's already touched on diverse educators, and then obviously a little shout out to Teach First and male childcare and teaching jobs. They've been real big supporters for us this year. So our wider content, so obviously we have our face-to-face events, but we also have lots of other content that you can access. So we've got all our social media. You can find us on X, LinkedIn. We've also got our website. So that's got a leadership directory, which is also being updated. We have blogs on our website. We are always looking for more people to write blogs. So if you are interested, please contact me. You can contact me on Twitter or contact Ben, and I can give you my email address. And then we've got YouTube, which we tend to share a lot of our behind the scenes or event highlights. But then also I think there are some clips from some of our events. And we also have our newsletter too, which goes out monthly. So we're not bombarding you with emails. So we've, I know Ben touched on it when he was talking about our why, but one of our key themes is leadership diversity. And we feel really strongly about that. We feel really strongly that people need to see themselves in leadership in order to aspire to be in leadership, to see that it's not lonely. And it's important, I think, to highlight some of the barriers that people can face, especially from those that from a diverse background sometimes. So we've intentionally ensured that our speakers are diverse and reflect our community. And obviously we like to celebrate with everybody as well when they're celebrating all their different festivals. And then I know Ben has said about we can't really believe how successful I think we've been this year. It's a kind of a bit surreal, but you can see some of the numbers there. I mean, 4,000 website views, it's great, but that 100% satisfaction rate for event attendees, I think we never thought that would happen. We're absolutely thrilled. That's one that we're incredibly proud of. But hopefully that will continue and we'll get more and more volunteers, we'll get more followers, we'll be able to share a lot more with you. So I know I touched on obviously our feedback. At each event we ask for honest and open feedback, whether that's positive or something that we maybe haven't thought of. Our events are designed to support you, our community, and therefore any feedback that we receive is appreciated and really valued. At the end of each event, what happens is we also have a meeting as a network team so that we will share that feedback with each other and make sure that we use that to then plan our future events. And I think it's really great to see all the positive feedback we've had this year, including comments about the quality of speakers, which have been amazing, the diversity of speakers, which I think is really important, organisation of the day, and the food, which is always really important. We also aim to be authentic and honest. We've said that leadership can be lonely and it doesn't have to be. And I think seeing lots of positive comments about this and about people stepping out of their comfort zone, but actually really enjoying the event is exactly what it's all about. So obviously this wouldn't work if it wasn't for our team that we have. Our team has grown from the founding volunteers of 6 people to a team of nearly 30. And obviously the pictures on the screen are just some of the people involved in the network. It's expanding rapidly, which we are thrilled by. And I think also he hasn't put it on here on his notes for me to speak. But Ben, I think, is always one of the people who never says what he's been up to, as in that all the work he does in the background. And I think from us at Step Up, you are invaluable to the team. So a lot of this wouldn't have been without you. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Christine, for that, because I do get told off, and I can see Hannah laughing in the background, as I do get told off for not saying thank you, but I always feel weird saying thank you to myself. But yeah, it's I think when you look back at that impact, and particularly one of the things we're doing at the moment, which should be available sort of July time, is writing an impact report for our strategy and impact team, behind the scenes putting together an impact report to share with our community. Is when you I think one of the things we didn't do on that strategy day is we never put numbers against things, apart from how many people we wanted at each event, like, oh, this event's going to be for around this many people. We never put, oh, this is how many social media followers, because we were worried about chasing the numbers. And I think when you see those numbers and how they've grown over such a short space of time, it's really good to see. But I think also being able to read the comments, it's one of the really satisfying things. And obviously we can't put every comment on from every survey that we do. But when you get to see those and see the people, particularly people who are saying things like, oh, I now feel empowered to go and write that application for that assistant head job, or I feel much more confident that this is what I want to do. Or if I think of myself, I knew I wanted to be a leader in education, but didn't really know what I wanted to do and what I wanted to lead on. And I think listening to lots of different speakers and reading so many blogs has just given lots of people that empowerment, or that clarity in some cases. I know, Christine, I'm sure you agree, we talk a lot
Yes.
about how much clarity is important in leadership, which is why I try and be as clear as I can with our volunteers, so they don't think that I'm not being clear enough. But actually, clarity, not just clarity from others, but clarity within yourself, I think is really, really important as well.
And I think it's one of the key things as well is I think somebody had said about it on Twitter today, X, whatever you want to call it, is that we're very value driven. And I think that's something that we've really stuck with, is that what we strongly believe our network should be about. And I think that's what's coming across to people, which is so lovely. So, yeah.
And as we've got some time, I'm going to put you on the spot now, Christine. What has been your favourite moment of the year for STEP? What was your favourite impactful thing?
Impactful thing, okay.
Yeah, that's probably not the best English, but yeah.
No, I was going to say your tea trolley moment at the London event was my favourite thing, but no, do you know what I think it was? I think it was that first Birmingham event, because I remember we were sat on we stood opposite sides of the room, and it's very much out of my comfort zone. Like, people who know me well know that I'm actually really introverted, and I don't tend to do things like this. So I think we were both a bit nervous, and seeing each other across the room, and we were kind of this is actually happening, because it was our first one too. I think it was just all a bit surreal, and I think we were a bit giddy afterwards.
Yeah.
But then London was really good as well. It was nice to see that format, to have so many people, have so many amazing speakers. But yeah, I think it's just more that the connections, because like you said, leadership can be really lonely, and obviously we've got our connections with our immediate circles, but having connections with people from other areas of the country, people in secondary, for example, I'm primary trained, that's probably been my highlight. What about yours?
Yeah, I think there's been so many, but yeah, I think mine's been that Birmingham event. I think the one thing I remember is my heart rate going up, and having that notification on my Apple Watch to say your heart rate is dangerously high at the moment. And I think that was more I thought, I think which most people get when they first organise an event, the first thing you think is, are people actually going to come? And I thought, are people actually going to be coming? And I remember walking up to the venue and getting to the room, and there were actually already people in there. And I was like, oh, there are people here. And then, yeah, like you said, London actually seeing, again, had that same thing. Oh, are people going to come? And then all of a sudden the room's full of 60 people. And yeah, and I think for me, it's not, like you said, it's not actually about the number of people. The number of people have been great, but the amount of connection that you have from that, which I think is why even our London event, which was 60, 70 people under one roof, it still was small enough to have those meaningful connections. Whereas I think if you have events that are too big, you can sometimes risk losing that. So it's been really nice to have that, and have all those connections and see all the volunteers as well. So it's been a great year. So thank you, Christine, for talking us through most of that year and celebrating that. And you can find out more information about the things we've done if you go to our X page, and also there will be a blog coming out on Wednesday morning. That's when our blogs do go out. As Christine did mention, we do like a good blog. So if you do want to write a blog for us, it'd be great for you if you could. Our blogs come out Wednesday morning, so we will be sharing one about all of the things we've done, and also the things you can be involved with, which will link to the second part, and also our impact report as well. So thank you, Christine. So now I'm going to introduce and welcome to the stage one of my highlights of the year was meeting this person actually in person, having met her virtually and connected many times, Hannah Wilson. So I'm going to add Hannah on to the screen. Good evening, Hannah. How are you?
Hi, Ben. Hi, team. I'm very good, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So Hannah actually spoke at our London event. She had just got off a plane from Dubai and ran our keynote session, which was at the end of the day, all around legacy, and ran a session as well, a workshop for us as well. And Hannah's been someone that I followed for many years. And I think some of the things, if we think about what Christine was just talking about there, things like values-led leadership, inclusion, and all of those things that I know that Hannah embodies all of those in her leadership journey. If you don't know who she is, she's a leadership development consultant, coach and trainer, and is the co-founder of Women Ed and Diverse Ed, and currently serves as the Director of Diverse Educators, which, as it's phenomenal, I'm sure many of you will agree, to go from a grassroots network to now a registered organisation providing services to schools and support schools across the world. And Hannah is going to be speaking all about intentional networking. So I'm just going to get your slides ready, Hannah, and then it will be over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And do I have to do the next slide, please?
No, yeah, if that's sorry to throw back to the regime. I will disappear, but I am in the background clicking for you.
It's all good. Thank you very much. So it's great to be here. So networking, I think, is perhaps my middle name. I've spent quite a lot of time networking through my career. I spent 20 years in the system, and I've been working as a support to the system for the last 5 years. And I was thinking about the title. Like, for me, I wanted to think about the power of networking and the impact it can have on us individually and collectively. But I also want us to think about how to network intentionally, so we are optimizing the little time and energy we actually have to be able to do it. So next slide, please, Ben. We always start everything with the Simon Sinek golden circles. There's an echo there. So I want you to think about these 3 questions for yourself. You're all going to be at different starting points when it comes to you and networking. So the first question, the why question, why do you network, or why do you need to network? So a slightly different question there based on whether you do it yet or whether you want to do it better. The how questions, how do you currently network, and how might you network more effectively? Because I really want you to think about the purpose of the networking and whether you're getting out of it what you need, because otherwise, without being rude, you're wasting your time and your energy. So making sure that it's really intentional, but it's also being impactful. And what's your desired outcome of networking more intentionally? Okay, what would you like to get out of it? It might be as simple as you want to change schools or trusts, or you want to get a promotion. But being clear, having that clarity about what you want to get at the end of it, to keep checking yourself to make sure you're online, I think it's really important. So thank you. Next slide. And I just wanted to share this, just so we're really clear on what networking actually is. When I started talking about and blogging about networking, when Women Ed started about 9 years ago, it was a bit of a dirty word. I think networking has sort of like connotations of business, but also corporate. There were a lot of tensions in the system at the time about schools academising and MATs being more corporate than perhaps the localities were. And so things like networking almost got associated with academies rather than schools. And I was working at one of the big London-based academy trusts at the time. So the idea of what we mean by professional networking, I think, is a curious concept. For you who have got friends outside of education, networking is an expectation. I've got friends who work in law, who work in health, who work in the media, and they are expected to network. They are expected to go to events, go to dinners and meet people. If we had it in our job description, would we commit to it more? Okay, there's a question there to think about. If there was an expectation to do it, I have networked and got a lot of benefits from networking, and I recruited my whole staff when I was ahead through networking. So I had a team who were willing to network, and that brought value to our school and to our school community as well. So I think being clear on what we mean by it and what all the different kind of subcomponents. Christine mentioned like introversion as one of the potential barriers. Like some people don't want to do in-person networking. That's absolutely fine. There's other ways to network. You can network online. You can do things in the way that feels authentic to you. And for all of those of you who are volunteering as part of the Step Up Network, that is networking in itself. Okay, the idea of contributing to a kind of a wider goal, a bigger goal. So next slide, please, Ben. So I have got 7 tips for you. I was thinking of 7 days in the week. Let's break this down to 7 tips. And it's almost like we pre-planned this. I didn't actually get a briefing from the team, but like be values aligned. We've already heard that phrase from Christine. I want us to be really clear on our values and how our values should be guiding us when we are networking. There are people in education, thought leaders in education, who I'm not values aligned to. So I would not go to an event where they're speaking, or I would not go to their session if they were at that event, because we're not values aligned, particularly around inclusion. So being clear on who you are, what you believe, what you stand for, I think is that starting point, that internal clarity. And then making sure that you are growing a circle around you of people you are aligned with. I don't talk about values fit, I talk about values alignment. It's finding people who you can sit alongside, stand alongside, and there's some common ground there. You don't have to be absolute replicas of one another. When we talk about values fit with recruitment, that jars me, because no one should be shoehorning themselves into a mold created by someone else. Okay, so think about alignment and think about how you're kind of like magnetizing towards people who perhaps share similar core values and similar visions for education as you do. Thank you, Ben. Number 2, be visible. This one I find really curious. There are a lot of people who think they're networking. They are on socials. They've got no headshot. They haven't got a real name. They've got a series of digits. You don't know who they are, where they are, what they do. So you're kind of there, but you're kind of half there. And I'll give you the analogy. If any of you have gone through the pain of online dating, which is quite a painful experience, I would not date someone who didn't have a face and didn't have a name. So why would I connect with you on LinkedIn or on Twitter when there's no details about who you are and what you do? Okay, so being clear on where you exist, but how you exist, I think is really important. I would really recommend less is more. Some people join every platform, and I've got people on LinkedIn in my network who have been there for 10 years and it's not been updated in 10 years. I would say, what's the point of being there if you're not going to update it? And if you are going to be there, be accessible, be contactable. I think sometimes people get a bit overprotective and put their kind of their boundaries up, and no one can contact you or follow you. I would argue, what's the point of being there then? I've always had a very open door kind of policy that people can follow me and DM me and contact me. If people cross lines, I block them and I mute them and I stop connecting with them. So I think doing that housekeeping around your visibility is really, really important, and leads on to the next one, Ben, which I think is be consistent, isn't it? Yeah, be consistent. I see people show up online really inconsistently. They've got pictures of what they looked like 10 years ago with a different haircut or different hair colour. They've got different pictures on different platforms, different ways of spelling their name or talking about their name on different platforms. I really think regular housekeeping is quite key here about showing up consistently on different platforms with the same framing of your name, title, your same headshot, your same location, the same blurb. Okay, so when I do an update on LinkedIn, I go onto Twitter and update there, and go onto Instagram and update there, and go onto Facebook and update there for my professional accounts, so that you have that consistency. Because I am that former head teacher, that if you applied for a job with me, I would go and find you on all of those platforms and find out whether what's in the application is actually consistent with how you're showing up and what you're talking about, and what else can I find out about you that perhaps you haven't put in your application form. So I think consistency is really, really important. Next slide, please. So the idea of being intentional. When you go to events, whether they're virtual or in person, my intentionality or my strategic intent that I connect with people before I even go to the event. So I'll use the Step Up London event as an example. We got sent the schedule, I printed it out, I crossed out all the people I already knew and the people I was already connected with, and I went and found all the other speakers on LinkedIn and on Twitter. It took me about 10 minutes, but it meant that when I was then at the event, I was already connected with them. I could tag them into posts, and I could convert some of those virtual connections into real time. A lot of people were already posting on socials before the event and during the event. So there were a lot of people actually in the room who I hadn't seen for years. And I knew they were coming, I could go and find them. There were people like Ben who I've chatted to for years virtually, but I could then go and actually say hello to them. And there were other people who I didn't know were coming from my network. It was a lovely surprise to see them. Okay, so having that intentionality about why are you going to the event, who are you going to go and talk to or connect with. I go to conferences by myself on purpose, because when I go with friends, I'm more likely to sit and drink coffee and talk to them all day than I am to actually go and meet new connections. I appreciate safety in numbers. Some people might find that easier to go with people. Try and split up. Try not to be glued together all day. And I will give myself a bit of a target that if I'm going to an event and there's people who I don't know or want to know, I will make sure I go to their session or I go and find them and say hello to them. And I always try to follow up. I might just drop a tweet or drop a DM on LinkedIn and say, hey, it was great to meet you. Here's my contact details. And I had quite a few people following the London event follow up with me. So you've then got a little bit more synergy and a little bit more sort of communication going. You then remember who they are for next time you see them. Next one, please, Ben. So being strategic is something to really consider here. I think sometimes people think that your network are the people you already know. I want you to think about how you expand your sphere of influence and expand your circle around you to strategically think about your future career. So when I applied for headship back in 2016, my first headship interview was in Bath and the Bristol area, and my second interview that I got was up in Oxfordshire. I was already finding head teachers, chairs of governors, CEOs in those two regions and reaching out to them on LinkedIn. My second interview, the one I got, was for an all-through school, and I was finding head teachers who were all-through heads and other founding head teachers. So I was a startup head, so I could pick their brain before I got to the interview. So I was really intentionally building that circle around me. So when I'm coaching people who are aspiring assistant head teachers or aspiring deputy heads, head teachers, I say, like, think about how far you're prepared to work, travel to work, draw a circle, make a list of all the schools, and go and find who you can on socials, particularly LinkedIn, who work in those schools. Follow those key people who, when jobs come up, they will be in your timeline. You can also follow the organisational accounts for schools, colleges and trusts. So I was often the first person to find out that there was a vacancy at a school down the road or a trust down the road, because I was following them on socials, which meant I had the advantage of getting in there quick with my kind of my initial request to go and do a visit, etc. So be strategic, be bold. The worst that can happen is that you send me a request on LinkedIn and I ignore it because I'm busy, or I don't accept it because I don't go on LinkedIn very often. I don't very often get declines. I don't very often get people who don't want to connect. Okay, so hold that positive regard, positive intent that everyone's there to network. Next slide, please, Ben. Be global. I think for me, this is the beauty of social media and platforms. I joined Twitter about 12 years ago. For about 3 years, I hated it and I left, and then I rejoined it, and that's when we then started Women Ed. And quite quickly, we went from being a national network to a global network. And I think one of the things that came out of lockdown for me was actually the fact that my network expanded globally. We hosted a virtual event in summer 21, and we had people from all over the world joining us, and it really took our network to the next kind of level. So finding people who do your role elsewhere in the world, people who share your passions and your interests. I think some of my biggest learning points and some of my biggest insights have actually been from listening to and learning from people in other countries. It's also led to invitations for me to go to conferences. I went to Canada back in 2017. I've done virtual conferences in Morocco. And as Ben said, I ended up doing some work in Dubai simply because of my network. And when I put on LinkedIn, I was talking at an event in Dubai. 3 heads who I didn't know contacted me and said, would you come and talk at our schools elsewhere in the region? So it very quickly snowballs and spawns. I think there's one more tip coming, Ben, if you could click on. Or is it my summary slide? Yeah, be mindful. I think this is actually the most important one for me. Be mindful with networking. I want you to be realistic and to manage your time and your energy. I know some people who almost network too much. They go to too many events. And I was probably guilty of that when I lived in London. When I was in my 20s and early 30s, I was going to a teacher meeting once a week. I was going to Saturday conferences all the time. I loved them. I met loads of amazing people who are now still in my network. And they're not only professional contacts, but they've become personal friends. But I did burn myself out at times, okay? So safeguarding yourself and managing your time and energy and being realistic about how much time and energy you're going to spend, and making sure that if you are going to spend time and energy on networking, that you are going to get something out of it. I've been to a couple of events where I've sat through the whole event and got home and thought, gosh, what did I actually get from that? I didn't learn anything. I didn't meet anyone. I'm just knackered now. Was it worth my time and energy? Did it add any value to me? So I think doing that audit is really important. And also manage your expectations. You're not suddenly going to get a new job or a promotion. You might have people who don't respond to you because they're busy. I get a lot of requests for, do you have 30 minutes to chat to me? And I would love to chat to everyone I meet in 30 minutes, but I have a limited amount of time. So I try to box clever and say, I haven't got time to meet you one-to-one, but I've got 8 people who want to talk about this theme. Can we all jump on a Zoom together? And actually that then helps people connect with other people as well. So that's one way of thinking about it. If you're the recipient of lots of requests, think about how you can actually collapse it and combine it so that you're not having 8 conversations repeatedly, you're having one conversation with 8 people. So if you go to the next slide for me, Ben, I wanted just to share some of the benefits, okay? Some of the benefits that I have taken from networking. I've probably been doing it for about a decade. I was in education for 20 years. I didn't network really for the first perhaps 9 years. And then it was actually when I became an assistant head teacher. I was the only female on an SLT. I then joined another school and I was the only female as a deputy head. I needed to grow my circle around me. I consciously wanted to have a circle of trust around me, and that's why I was part of the founding team of Women Ed. And I wanted to have that circle of trust of other women leaders at my level to draw on and to learn from. So that's one of my benefits, and that circle continues for me. It's evolved over time, but I have got some very strong friends and friendships that have grown out of that networking. And my dad always laughs, like, you've got friends from Twitter who you go on holiday with, is it safe? But I've met some brilliant people. I've also been fortunate enough to receive lots of mentoring and coaching from people who have been very generous with their time, hence why I then pay it forward. And some of that mentoring and coaching has led to me having fantastic visible role models and sponsors, people who have opened the door for me, people who have said my name in rooms I'm not in and invited me to go to things. And anyone who does follow Diverse Ed and follows me will know that I lost one of them back at Easter, and it really devastated me that someone who had been that door opener for me passed very early in their lives. And I wrote a blog about the impact they'd had on me. Okay, so those role models are absolutely important. I didn't know I was going to get jobs from it. I didn't join Twitter and start doing events and speaking at events to get jobs. I have subsequently met heads and CEOs through those networks who have then invited me to apply for jobs. And my headship actually came from one of those networking events. I can remember meeting the CEO at the Excel Centre, being introduced. He gave me his card. We went for a coffee. Next thing I know, I'm applying for a job and I get it. Okay, so doors have been opened. I've also been given book deals through networking. I haven't managed to do them all yet, but having invitations to contribute to thought leadership, lots of invites to be on podcasts, to blog, to contribute, and to get out there, to like find my voice, use my voice, and to support others. I'm an avid traveller, so one of the benefits has been I've been invited to do things where I've perhaps tagged an event onto a holiday or had a holiday as a result of going to an event. And I didn't join any of these spaces and network to recruit, but my network grew. It was a very diverse network. It was people who was very values aligned to me. So when I became a founding head teacher and I was staffing a secondary school and a primary school, I didn't have to pay for any adverts because my network was there. I was already connected. I was hosting events. I put adverts out and we had an abundance of people applying. So if you are a head teacher, a deputy head, a CEO listening, like that, we don't network to get free staff, but you meet brilliant people and you get a real sense of who they are. And that's half the job when it comes to attracting and getting people to apply for jobs. I think my last slide, or second to last slide, if you want to click me on, please, Ben. The barriers, okay? It's not always easy. And these are some of the barriers that have come up, not necessarily for me, but for people who I support through networking. I think confidence can be a massive barrier. So having the confidence to even sign up and go to an event or to go to an event by yourself or to volunteer to speak at an event, I think that's something that you go on a bit of a journey with. And I've seen people join Twitter, have no face, then they have their face, then they follow some things, then they comment, then they start volunteering. And it's quite a trajectory, quite a continuum. I think there's a lack of training. I think if you can add a piece of value to your ECTs or your aspiring middle leaders and assistant leaders, SLTs, in your schools, have space where we're actually thinking about what does it mean to be a good networker. It's a skills gap. I think it's something we actually need to intentionally pay attention to and build. I think another barrier is lack of commitment, that we think we're doing it, we're not wholly doing it. And then thinking about some different identity groups, there's lots of research and data about women finding networking particularly difficult. And I think there's some barriers there we have to be conscious about when it comes to parent and caring responsibilities and what we prioritise and how networking is done and when it happens. So there's research that says that more male applicants than female applicants going for a headship interview will go and do the networking visit and go and meet people and go and be a known person in the process. Women don't always prioritise that. So you're then disadvantaged when it comes to the actual interview itself. So seeing it as part of the process, I think, is really important. There are now amazing organisations doing events where there's a free crash, or you can bring your children. We always had family-friendly events when I was a head teacher. So removing some of those barriers that actually might inhibit a woman from actually coming, I think, is really important as well. So thinking about women, but also parents and carers, because obviously not all parents and carers are female, but thinking about those two groups, I think, is really important. And I think other groups to consider, if you're someone who networks or is considering networking or hosting space for networking, is the introvert and someone who is neurodivergent. Events can be really, really overwhelming. So having things like a quiet space, somewhere where you can go to. I always put on our events that you don't have to go to all the workshops, you go to the marketplace, we have a quiet room. So there's lots of things there to consider. And it might be that you want to have a tag person, someone you go with. I can remember meeting a brilliant CEO and head teacher from the Midlands who called themselves the Pincer Sisters, and they would go to conferences together. They'd have a list of the people they wanted to meet, and they would literally go up and like pincer the person who they wanted to talk to. And they had a bit of a strategy about doing that together. Okay, so maybe you do want to take people with you. That's going to help get you through the door and get you to stay at the event. I think there's a couple of slides left, Ben. I think my recap of my 7 tips is the next one. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so there's my 7 top tips for networking. Hopefully some of those top tips resonated, and there's some things that you consider. I think sort of like getting curious and checking in with yourself and challenging yourself to push out your comfort zone is really important. That's how we grow, and that's how we maximize the kind of the value we get out from networking. We don't want to get ourselves really knackered and really busy and then wonder why we're bothering, okay, if we're not actually fulfilling our goals at the end of it. Next slide, please. That's just my contact details. I'm pretty easy to find. Hannah Wilson's a pretty common name, but if you put Hannah Wilson, I'm quite prolific on most of the social media platforms. And I'm sure Ben and the team are going to share some links post-event. We have got an in-person event at Wolverhampton University coming up in July. Step Up are not gate clashing. They've been invited to actually come and contribute at it. So they'll be in the marketplace and running a session. We'd love to see you there. And we've got lots of virtual ways we can connect as well. So thank you for having me and thank you for listening.
As always, Hannah, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I was writing notes there because I thought, like you said, it was as if it was planned, but it wasn't planned. There were so many links there that we made. I think some of the key threads, just to pull them out, if I may, before we move on, like that intention, being intentional with networking. Like you say, one of the things we spoke about actually when we first set up the network, why we set that up, is because, like you said, if you were working in that corporate sector, there is the weekly drinks or the weekly coffee or the weekly lunch where everyone gets together. And actually in education, it's sort of seen as that add-on in some cases, that some people choose to, some people don't. And some roles tend to allow that more. So if you're a full-time classroom teacher, it actually allows you less of an opportunity than it would, say, a head teacher or a CEO. So I thought that was a really interesting one. And being really consistent and strategic as well. The amount of people that sometimes you can say they're going to contact you and don't end up contacting you and things like that, and actually making sure that you, like, and going back to your first point about that values alignment of making sure that you are networking in a way that you would wish to be networked with as well. And I really loved as well that mindfulness of managing your time, energy and expectations. I remember after our London event, which was absolutely awesome, having to put my phone down because it just kept pinging and pinging, and I was like, oh, I remember being in this hotel at like 8 o'clock at night. I was like, right, do you know what? I'm going to put my phone down for the rest of the evening now and put the TV on instead, or go for a walk, because it can take up a lot of time. And often it is time well spent. But like you said, sometimes if you're networking too much as well. And I really loved when you were talking about some of the barriers as well, because that's something we talk about as a network a lot. So one of the things you'll realise if you've been to one of our events is we collect diversity data afterwards. And that was because, and I remember having a conversation with you, Hannah, saying, oh, I don't think we get many parents coming to our events. And we had a bit of a chat around that. And actually, when I looked at all of our data across all of our events, we've actually got quite a lot of parents coming to us. Oh, but actually, how can we then improve it for other, for people who aren't attending who are parents? Or like you said, I remember there was a blog you wrote, I think it was a couple of years ago, where you put like a list together for event organisers of, have you got, for example, a quiet space, or have you got a prayer space or a breastfeeding room or disabled parking spaces or seats near the front for people with a hearing impairment. And I would say if you are, and we can share that out, I'm happy to share that out afterwards. If you are someone who is organising events, who's watching this, then definitely check out that blog because it's so useful. And as Hannah said, she has got a toolkit. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, Hannah, just before we move on. You've got a toolkit, and I know you did a blog recently about networking. If you want to just
yeah, sure. So I spend a lot of time training leaders and coaching leaders, and I try to then provide resources and curate resources. So on my Hannah Wilson website, which is my leadership website, I've got a number of toolkits on there, and networking is one of the toolkits, and all the toolkits are formatted in the same way. One of the networks we just launched, myself and Malavilli, in the last few weeks is educational entrepreneurs, because we both get contacted all the time by people who are doing a bit of side hustle and wanting to do some evenings and weekends or have ideas for the future. Again, I didn't have 20 slots in my diary to have 20 meetings, so we decided to come together and create one space for all those people to come together. I think what's excited me over the last few years are how many grassroots groups there are, and how many different communities you can connect with. But I want to give a massive thank you and shout out to how slick this network is. Like, I'm someone who goes to a lot of events, and that London event was one of the slickest events I've been to. So well done for really practicing what you preach and modelling great leadership as well.
Thank you, and I really appreciate that. And I remember seeing that word slick came up quite a few times in our survey and our conversation afterwards. So it was great to see that. So thank you, Hannah, for speaking tonight and joining us. I really appreciate it and sharing your wisdom. I have put the blog and on networking and the toolkit on networking in our chat, and we'll make sure that afterwards we share this with anyone that's attended the event and online as well as that other blog that I mentioned about organising events. So Hannah, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will get ready to move on.
Well done and happy birthday.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you. So we are now going to think towards the future, and this is really exciting now. So I'm going to add Brooke into the stream, who is going to share with me as we talk you through some of the things we have got planned for this year. Unfortunately, Uta couldn't join us in the end. Her meeting still overran. So we are going to crack on. So Brooke, I believe you're first.
Hi everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our mission and priorities, because whilst we have communicated the why, the how and the what, we know that our ultimate mission and vision and values hasn't been communicated. So our mission and values are to empower our diverse community with empathy, passion and integrity to make the step up that they wish to make. And with that, we then looked at our priorities and what that includes. So our vision to achieve these includes that educational leadership is diverse, inclusive and flexible. It responds to the needs of the sector by positively distributing leadership, and in particular recruitment, and creating a strong talent pool for those coming from teaching into that middle leadership or senior leadership role. And we address the gaps in knowledge and skills for those stepping up to educational leadership.
Thank you, Brooke. And yeah, just to be really clear on that, the next thing we're announcing, which is really exciting, which we've had planned for a while, and it felt a really good opportunity to launch it here, is like Christine said, like Brooke said, and by having Hannah talk to us here, we recognise the importance of having diversity within our network, but within leadership in general. And we know actually when you look at some of the figures around diversity in education, actually some of the figures are really poor and actually quite shocking. I remember going to the Black Men Teach event, picking up the first flyer that was there, and one of the bullet points was that there's only 1% of head teachers in this country that are Black. And I think in the 21st century, that's appalling. We realise, though, that actually there are many systemic barriers, there are societal barriers, and there are also workplace barriers that we need to address. One of the ways we want to address that is by our Diverse Leaders Bursary, which is launching very soon, and it's to help those from underrepresented groups within education to make the step up that they wish to make. Like Brooke said, that's a key line, that leadership shouldn't be about someone telling you what step to make. You are in ownership of this. So it's supported by the Teach First Network Fund. If you go to our website, www.stepupnetwork.uk, and go to the Our Offer section, you will find there the link to the brochure and the link to the application form. It's actually quite a short deadline. There's a month's deadline from today to apply. And that can be used in a number of ways. If you wanted to really buy a book that you felt that would really help you, if it was a ticket to an event, not just one of our events as well, I'll say. It could be another education event or the travel bursary, for example. If you go onto there, there's all the details. We also, within that brochure, talk about our wider strategy around DEI, and that's something that Uta has really championed for us as our DEI lead for a network. Another way that we're changing the way we're working, and we've got a webinar on this in a couple of weeks' time, is how we work with our partners. As Christine shared at the beginning, we've got so many different organisations that have really helped us, and we've worked with them as well. And we're very much have put an emphasis on that, because when we restructured our volunteer team, one of our teams purely looks at partnerships and how we work with others and how we collaborate. So there are three sort of key pillars of organisation that we want to work with. So we want to network with other networks. And like Hannah said, there has been a big rise in the grassroots network community in particular. So we want to work with businesses and charities, but also other networks, whether that be amplifying you, supporting you launch. We're currently working with the Pastoral Network to help them relaunch, or if it's some an organisation where we can share some of the things we've done. Hannah said, like, not to blow my own trumpet, but we are a very slick organisation. You can see Christine smiling in the background there. And one of the things we've actually done is we've based it around a book that I'd read that really helped us devise our strategy, and it's actually worked wonders. So if you ever want us to share that with you, then please let us know. Coaching is one of the things that people call for lots, and I'm a huge advocate for coaching. It's a really useful tool. We're really keen to work with organisations that provide coaching and individual coaches to support our community. If you come to our partnership webinar, which we can make sure to post the details out for you, I believe off the top of my head, it's the 24th of June, Monday the 24th of June at 4:30 p.m. till 5 p.m. And we can share that information with you. Then please do so. And our final one is we do want to be working more directly with people in education, and not just individuals that come to our events on Saturday, but directly with people as part of their day-to-day job. We want to be working with schools and multi-academy trusts, higher education institutions, teacher training providers, teaching school hubs, you name it, we want to work with you. So if you're interested, please do get in touch, or you think your school might be interested, then please get in touch. Now, this is the most exciting part that I'm really excited about, and I'm actually quite glad that I get to present this now, because I am really excited just seeing it all go live. Probably said excited too many times then. But we are here able to announce our events for the next year. So we're going to start with our face-to-face events. We have 4 face-to-face events taking place this year. And just like Christine said, with our events last year, this is exactly the same for this forthcoming year. Each event, we are really intentional of doing a different format with a different number of people to see what works. So like, for example, we did a fantastic event in Manchester, and we knew we had 6 fantastic speakers, but giving them 10 minutes each was not enough time. So we've realised that and tried to adapt it. So our 4 face-to-face events, they have all gone live on our Eventbrite now. So if you go to our website, at the bottom of our website, in the footer, you will see the link to our Eventbrite. All of them have gone live. Our first event is going to be taking place in London on the 12th of October, Saturday the 12th of October. And we've got Yamina Bibi, Patrick Cozier, Kimberly Evans and Christala Jamil joining us. And that is for a coffee and lead me. Tickets are £15 each, and you get unlimited refreshments, unlimited cake, which, I mean, you know, if that's not going to attract you, I don't know what will, as well as our fantastic speakers as well. So that is our first event of the academic year. There's about 30 tickets available for that one. So one thing I will say is, if you bear in mind our London event last year had a capacity of about 60 to 80, you might want to get your tickets fast just to make sure you're guaranteed a ticket. Our next event, our first event in the Southwest, is going to be Bristol on the 25th of January, our brunch and lead me, where we're going to have breakfast and have some fantastic speakers. So far, we have Sam Crome, the author of The Power of Building Strong Teams, and Dominique Long as our first 2 speakers. And we've got one more speaker that we're just doing the final confirmation for, and we will give them a shout out when we've confirmed them. And that is our smallest face-to-face event. There's only 12 tickets available. So if you are someone that wants to come, with that, your ticket includes breakfast, full breakfast, refreshments, and the speakers as well, and contributes towards the hire of the venue. Our next event is in Wolverhampton, actually in Christine's school, on the 1st of March. That's going to be our Midlands Leadership Day, so it's going to be the same format as our London Day. We have got so many amazing speakers listed for that day. So if you go onto our Eventbrite page on that for that event, we've got about 8 speakers we've already confirmed, with a further 4 that we're just confirming. Your ticket there is £20, and it includes your 3 workshops, keynote speaker, exhibitors, buffet lunch, unlimited refreshments, promotional items, and much, much more. And then our final face-to-face event of the year that we are publishing today is Leeds on the 29th of March, and it is a lunch and lead meet. Your ticket for that gets you a 2-course meal at an Italian restaurant, as well as access to 3 fantastic speakers. We've confirmed 1 already, which is Patrick Otley O'Connor, and we'll have 2 more joining us. And you'll also get promotional materials and lots of other gifts from us. We also have gone live on Eventbrite with our virtual events for next year. Now, our virtual events, so we're trialing a different format this year. It is 4 virtual webinars, all based around one of our key leadership themes, and there's a panel discussion. And we've got over 16 speakers across those events who are panelists for our event. So please do go on there and check when they are. They tend to be on a Thursday evening, 7 till 8. And like all of our virtual events, will be clipped down and uploaded to YouTube. So like I said, get your tickets quick. We are also going to be doing another event in the summer, which details will be confirmed in around January time, 2025. So, Brooke, I believe I'm handing back to you now.
Yeah, so as we said in the beginning, kind of the ways of connecting with us through X, LinkedIn, we've got our website. On X, we are the StepUpNet_ed, and then our website is Step Up Network. We also have our blog and e-newsletter, which again, I think Christine mentioned this, we are always looking for people to write blogs. And check out our YouTube channel and check out the highlights from our events and behind the scenes, and make sure you subscribe. We also have our newly formed Mighty Network group, and thanks to Hannah and Diverse Educators for this. So please sign up, as we will start using this as a way of facilitating online networking going forwards. And then, so without the volunteers, none of this would be possible. And we've recently restructured our team and our ways of work. And as Ben has said, a massive shout out to absolutely everybody involved. And we're really, really grateful and appreciative of every one of you. We recently just celebrated Volunteers Week, and I think it really showed through our posts how much each and every one of you means to the network. So we are meeting on the Saturday, the 29th of June for our strategy day. So do let us know what you want from our network so we can provide the very best for you. And I'm pretty certain, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, there is going to be a feedback form at the end.
Yeah, we usually will send out a specific feedback form for this. We will schedule some emails to you, so you can also just reply to those emails with any key feedback that you'd wish, or also share them on our social media, and we'll gladly share them. Thank you, Brooke. And we are finishing pretty much bang on time. I am going to bring Christine back in a moment. But I would like to say a huge thank you in particular. I know Christine gave them a shout out, but to not just Diverse Educators who've really supported us, but a huge thank you to Male Childcare and Teaching Jobs and Teach First, who've been 2 of our main sponsors and funders this year. And without their support, we couldn't have achieved what we have achieved. So to Claudio at Male Childcare and Teaching Jobs, Chloe, who was our original network connector, and now Tim and Maria at Teach First, thank you. And of course, we had to say a huge thank you to London Screen Academy, who I don't think will just become, and I say just, become our London event venue from last year, but I think they will definitely become like our hub in the capital for all things Step Up. But yeah, it's been an absolutely great evening, and it's been lovely to now see we've got 155 people watching across all different platforms. It is really sad that Uta and Elaine couldn't be with us tonight, but I know they are here in spirit and would have celebrated with us just as much. So yes, please do go and check out the website, check out the Eventbrite. Like I said, tickets are now live for all of our events. And we would like to say a huge thank you for you to actually being here tonight and watching and seeing everything that we've done. What we will do is we'll clip down this event. So we'll clip down Hannah's talk about intentional networking, as well as the beginning and the end. So, and put that onto our YouTube channel as well, so you can see exactly what we're about. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. Best ways are social media. So Twitter, well, X, LinkedIn, at stepupnet_ed, or email us info@stepupnetwork.uk. Thank you, Brooke and Christine, for co-hosting with me this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. Thank you to Hannah, who's gone back to her team meal that she jumped out of to be with us tonight. And a huge thank you to all of you for coming. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your evening, and we hope to see you at one of our Step Up events, following us, or in whatever way you wish to connect to us soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.